All right, everybody, welcome on back to game number 3 between Pendragon Playmakers and King Kai's. Look, it's me, it's Judas, back for my first Smite Night cast of Season 5. Well, that's just how it's happened here today. But yeah, of course, I am joined today by Kaizo. Kaizo, we've had some pretty massively storming games so far, these first 2 games, but maybe bring us all up to speed on exactly how the narrative of this game has gone.
Yeah, for those of you that didn't get to catch the 2 games or just maybe want to recap, game number 1 was all Pendragon Playmakers. They definitely looked incredibly strong early on. Cartman got off to a 10-0 tear on the Kali and put down what was essentially one of the best 10.3 drafts I've ever seen for the Kinkais, who bounced back in game 2. After the Playmakers go back to what they had done, the Kinkais get an incredibly good game in game 2 off the back of Morton on the Thanatos, who hands off the early lead to the ADC of Ptolemy as well as their mid laner, and they had an incredibly decisive fight around the Fire Giant pit where Ptolemy got a great Ishtar ult off and managed to successfully kill or stun or cripple or whatever she might happen to do against about 4 people in the back line, and then not only that, also managed to live to tell the tale. So it has been a back and forth one, Judas, and you would not want to have missed either game, but something tells me that game number 3 is going to be just as decisive and just as incredibly explosive as the first 2.
Well, game 1 was great, game 2 was even greater, but that's in the past, and game 3 is in the present, so we're going to head right on over to our picks and ban phase for this third game. And we sometimes discuss, Kaizo, within these sorts of matches, especially when they are back and forth like this, you sort of get mini metas forming. Are you seeing any of that within this fixture, or is it just everyone still trying to work out what the hell's going on in 10.3?
I would definitely say it's more of the latter. I think that teams want to be playing the new stuff, but clearly are not as rehearsed on it as they would have liked to have believed, and therefore just falling back to what they know, which they seem to be playing incredibly well. Like, obviously still taking the Aphrodite off the table, because that is, make no mistake, the best god in Smite right now, but it's a lot of playing within the set. What is working right now? And what's working right now isn't the new stuff, it is the old stuff. It's the Ishtar, which is banned away here by the Playmakers in the first slot, and I think for very good reason, considering Ptolemy on this pick basically carried game number 2 on his back.
Yeah, like you said, made the all-astounding play towards the end of the game, but despite that big play being so impactful, even the early game and towards the mid-game, that was all massive too. And, you know, we often talk about these carries, especially right now, people not maybe being sure what is exactly ideal or maybe optimal. Just having a player who can play a carry so well throughout an entire game, get rid of it. You do not want to go up against that. Basically, now the challenge, the gauntlet has been thrown out to Ptolemy. It's, hey, all right, you played that great. Jingwei didn't go quite so well game number 1. What else have you got? What can you bring to the table to actually, impact the game? And I don't know. I mean, Ishtar, very, very capable of having such an impact, but now that they're off the board and with Maui Kukulkan coming through, it doesn't seem like carries the high priority right now of the Kinkais.
Yeah, very strong frontline drafted here by the Kinkais, and taking the Maui again is, I think, definitely a good look. I think that the Kukulkan, which we've seen now in all 3 games, has looked pretty impactful regardless of the team that it's been on. And I truly do think that after you ban away the Ishtar, which is, again, something we've been seeing since the end of Season 9 being this strong, there's maybe Kernanos, and then there's a pretty wide gap. So I don't dislike the fact that they're not immediately jumping on whatever their ADC pick is going to be here. I think grabbing the stuff that has worked well for you, grabbing the stuff that you know is going to be very strong, is definitely a worthwhile investment here, as they grab the Agni to round out their top 3 with a very commanding presence from these 3 picks. I think that they have definitely gotten just about what they would have asked for each of these 3 roles.
It's almost blind pick style, right? If you could have picked 3 gods to bring to your top 3, Maui, Kukulkan, Agni, like, not necessarily top pick at all times, these gods, but you really can't complain with them, Agni, ever since Season 10, has just been not quite the best god, but top 3 for a lot of people, behind the Tiamat Merlin mid lane meta. Agni was right there, waiting in the wings, and, if you can lock that in and basically guarantee a relatively safe, relatively consistent high damage output mid laner, I mean, surely you want to lock that one in. I mean, that's why we can see they have done so, but as the rest of the draft comes through now, this last few picks, the last 2 picks for both teams, that tends to be where we start seeing the more spicy picks, maybe like the secret jungle tech you've been hiding, especially in the Game 3. Can you see any of that coming through, or are you expecting someone to maybe run back to a pick they've already ran so far this fixture?
I don't know. I could go either way. The only thing that I want 100% for sure is I want to see a jungler that can absolutely put the game on his back. You see Ao Kwang already locked in here for the Playmakers. I want to see the Kinkais grab a jungler that has that X factor carry potential on their own. I think that maybe Daji wasn't where I was going with that, but Susanna, which is banned away by the Playmakers, is definitely in that conversation for a character that can just run away with the game. I think that something like the Kali could look very good here, Thanatos, something like that. Nasha just doesn't fit that bill for me, man. Both of these first 2 games were won almost exclusively off of an early lead developed by a jungler who looked best in class, like they were the best player on the map at any given time, and then handed off to the backline. And I'm just not sure that Naja is that pick for my money that is able to make that same kind of relevant early game impact. Granted, it is a different play style. It's not that they're trying to do the same thing and just didn't pick a good god for it. I just am very surprised that with how well each of these teams played their winning games, they're deviating whatsoever from either one of those play styles.
You might have to jog my memory a little bit here, Kaizo. So I know that there was a large amount of gods changed, of course, in the recent patch, which of course subsequently got banned from Smite Night for this
All
week.
of them.
But Naja, of course, has that built-in healing with the Flame Spear. But were there any other changes to this god? Because Naja, up until today, I mean, I've seen it all of Smite Night to be top ban worthy. In fact, very rarely gets picked because it's just always banned out. So was there a significant change specifically to Naja for that, or has the meta just shifted away from this god?
I do think that Naja just will generally hold a lot of value with players for a pretty long period of time, just because being able to make the enemy jungler go beads is an incredibly impactful change that ordinarily wouldn't be the case. You typically want your jungler to play very aggressive, get a blink, something like that allows them to play a lot more hands-on early on, and Naja forces you to at least consider going beads in that conversation, and that's where a lot of the priority on this pick comes from. But as you alluded to, the fact that now you are basically gutted on your healing, it used to have incredibly high physical power scaling that allowed you to get bursts of healing of several hundred, upwards of 300-400 healing. Now that there is no more power scaling in the game for healing, Naja's heal is going to give you 80, 100, something like that. It is truly not very much, and makes it much more unlikely that you get good value out of this pick as a kind of hybrid facilitator, which is usually the role that we often saw this god doing. So he's having a bit of an identity crisis right now, but as far as whether or not he's good, I mean, the stuff he does well, he'll always continue to do well.
Yeah, of course, and what we've been looking at throughout these games, right? Like you said, there's been some massive changes, but what has worked for both of these teams so far is just sort of reverting back to the norm, reverting back to what is tried and tested. And Naja, despite having this healing reduction coming through, always lifting someone to the sky and bringing them down. Just wait for your waiting team to completely blow them up. That's always going to have some good value. So we'll have to see exactly how these teams manage to do that as we do transition on in to our third game. This is, of course, Pendragon Playmakers, winner of Game 1 on the Order side, with Kinkai's winner of Game 2 on the Chaos side. Now, both teams setting up in this standard formation, nothing too surprising, because both these teams just want to, rock this one, have a good, consistent game, and hopefully come out on top.
Yeah, and we will see Flake Slayer try to sneak his way into the mid lane position in the spectator client, but I don't suspect that he's going to likely be the mid laner. That's more than often than not going to be Merlin that's going to be taking that perspective. But I definitely do agree that it is going to have to be it has to be a strong start. That has been the tail of the tape for this one, is whichever team gets off to the significant early lead ends up carrying that one forward to the end, which means that you can't make too many mistakes. You can't, for example, die to a blue buff before level 2. That would probably be something you would want to avoid, and maybe a good reason to buy, I don't know, a defense item level 1 as opposed to a power item if you were to hypothetically be a solo laner who, hypothetically, Judas, would potentially, allegedly, die level 1 to a blue buff.
I mean, I don't know why you think that's relevant to talk about, you know. I don't think that would ever happen.
Yeah, no, of course not.
I mean, yeah, I guess hypothetical's always fun to throw around, but in all seriousness, this time Juggernaut comes on in happy and with blue buff in hand, actually speed buff in hand. Quite relevant. I was wondering why that marker was still on the map, but yes, comes through alive is the most important one and gets themselves off to a reasonable start, of course, in this solo lane. But something we didn't actually touch on yet in picks and bans, this Vamana pick coming through. Now, most gods will struggle against Cucullin in lane, but how do you think specifically this Vamana will do throughout this game?
Vaman's not really a character that struggles against anything just because it doesn't try to fight anything. This is absolutely a character that will try to clear the wave and then rotate out and impact other parts of the map. If the Vaman's fighting the Cucullin, either the Cucullin's playing it wrong or the Vaman's making some kind of mistake. Because this guy just wants to get level 5, get the ult online, and we're not going to wait that long, Judas!
Well, trading blood for blood in the middle lane. That is jungler for mid laner. So fast it happens, so fast they come back on alive. But that, overall, I think goes to the benefit of the Playmakers getting the kill first, but if they can get the second kill, that would make it so it definitely goes in their favor. Now, Ruby low health, Morton already back on the scene, charging down the lane, gets the Universe Ring Toss on the minions, but can't close the distance in time. Explosive start from both of these teams.
Yeah, and if he maybe managed to get the slow there, that's a fight they could have potentially taken, but it looks like a fight brewing in duo as well.
Ooh, Bees comes out. This is all over the gold buff. It does go down in favor of King Kai's, but Ptolemy now thrown into the shield. We'll pick that up in order to continue brawling. Both sides swapping positions here, and now just want to get back to some safety because nobody knows where the junglers are showing up. Small win for King Kai's, and Fanatics getting a little bit over anxious there and burns those purification beads.
Yeah, and Vanatix continues to be under pressure and under fire here, as so too is Cartman. And this is not a 1v1 that you should really be looking to take early on as Ao Kuang. Naja not known to be the best level 1 through 4 character, but Cartman on this Ao Kuang also kind of in that same category. The difference being that Morton has relevant crowd control, which can play a very impactful role in these early fights when you're really looking to make the most out of the health bar that you've got, and having any additional X factor of suddenly you can't play the game can make a very significant dent in those calculations of, well, I thought that I maybe had this guy, and then all of a sudden the sash comes through, I get stunned, and then I take more damage than I had anticipated. Cartman doesn't really have that ability as well, considering his only crowd control comes on at level 5, unless you want to count the slow, which I don't think that most people would typically qualify in that conversation. So probably for the best that Cartman disengages there and returns to farming, despite the fact that it's mostly these junglers early on that have been giving us much action to talk about.
Yeah, I think this is the first time, like as you described, where both teams have junglers that don't really get going to level 5. Even in game 1, despite it being a Mercury Kali, they don't even get going at level 5. You know, they tend to take even a little bit longer than that. So this time having both junglers who want to play it a bit slower and take their time to, you know, get this level 5 and then start impacting the map. But it does have to be said that both games so far have been relatively short. I think around 25 minutes on each, you know, certainly sub 30 minutes, which is exceptionally quick, given how Season 10 has gone on so far. So we'll be interested to see how long this game goes, and if it will be quite so decisively done over quickly. Now that is taken to the sky. Goes Ruby right now. Still has the Flicker available, but doesn't have to get crippled by Sylar. That is the beads coming out. Flicker comes through to save their life, but that's some good pressure in the mid lane for King Kai's.
Yeah, Morden successfully burns the beads, or at least sets up to allow that to happen shortly thereafter. And I'd like to see Ruby either decide to use the beads on the Naja Sash or the ult, or otherwise just try to live through that engagement even after getting pulled in. Because taking all of that damage and essentially forcing yourself to be a little bit less safe in the mid lane when you're really looking to farm out that Book of Thoth is not the greatest look for you.
I think that was an execute coming through from Cartman there, but didn't actually sound like it connected it. It made the sound, but it didn't actually pull off the execute. That's a beads on the slow from Morton, but they will get to safety, but they'll get lifted to the sky as they go for the dive. Juggernaut again countering out that execute from Ao Kwang with the Spear of Mortal Pain. This time doesn't even fall for it.
Yeah, and that's not the first time that we've seen Cartman go a little bit too aggressive for these Ao Kwang executes, specifically under a tower, and specifically in the solo lane. He, in game number 2 as well, was caught a couple of times just trying to dive too deep, trying to get that extra value when he otherwise probably shouldn't have. And now, Ptolemy hurt this dash, Judas.
Ptolemy, here's the dash, wants to go in, gets the Wild Hunt out from Fanatics, and that should be enough for Ptolemy to be satisfied with it. So, looks like that will just be the end of that engagement. As Kabani now lifted to the sky. This ult being used on cooldown by Morton, but the dash is just so good. That umbrella will knock you to the sky and take Kabani to safety as Fanatics takes down Ptolemy with the help of Cartman. These junglers absolutely flying on all sides of the map.
Yeah. Specifically splitting the map as well, which is something that we often see from these characters that are more late game focused. You don't want to take these early fights because you're not a character that is really designed to be able to do that. So you find an advantage for someone else, which is something you're more than capable of regardless of the character that you're playing. If Ao Kwang and Naja end up going head to head, it's not going to be pretty as fireworks fly in mid here, but because they're managing to impact different sides of the map, each one is willing to get value, and Ruby is in some serious danger here.
In some serious danger, but Flake Slayer does not give up on the peel. And that means that Cartman might be smelling some blood in the water, wants to make a move in this middle lane, and decides that there's nothing worth diving the tower for in this lane. I saved that just for solo lane. So nothing quite happening so far, but both sides clearly showing an intent to get aggressive. The gold and experience lead is dead even, 2 kills to 2 on both sides. So is there any window that you're sort of seeing right now where one team is maybe either getting an advantage or showing signs of possibly gaining an advantage in the near future?
I think that Cartman needs to redirect his attention over to this solo lane where Cullen has the teleport and no magic defense available, as well as no purification beads, which makes him a very juicy target for these executes. The only difference, Judas, is that I'd like to see him try to go for these plays without needing to dive a tower, as he's done up until this point, but instead it's going to be fighting in duo lane, Ptolemy forced out.
Massive brawl goes down, but that does mean the taken to the sky is Fanatics this time, who still manages to dash to a bit of safety, but it is just a bit of safety as Fanatics gets that kill and is happy enough to take the fling under the tower. Flexler needs to be careful. They're not now the target. Get caught by the hook, gets killed by the ring, and that is a double kill in the dual lane. Finally, an advantage goes to one of the teams.
Yeah, Ptolemy still continuing to force this issue onto Vanatix, as we were seeing in game number 2, and got help for Vanatix early on from Cartman to spell his first demise of the game, but the beads perfectly timed baited just long enough in disadvantage, even in that wild hunt, to allow the team to have the time to come in, knowing that Kurnos didn't have those beads available, wouldn't be able to immune out that Naja ult. Very well drawn out plan and very well executed from them. Is now Ptolemy in the mid lane, we've got Cartman in the solo lane here looking for this cuckoo.
Well, Cucullin goes in, tunnel vision on the blue buff, but instead turns their attention onto Kabani and will take the kill. Now, Cartman is not a lot of damage away from dying as they do get aggressive. There's the Purification Beast comes out. Morton will give chase. They are still invisible, but will be revealed in just a moment. Goes for the shot, almost connects with it, doesn't matter. Still sweeps up the kill, does Morton. Cartman falls down to the enemy jungler. And now, King Kai is starting to build a hefty lead as they keep getting these double picks.
And incredible that Taktico successfully kills off Kabani before getting into Execute Threshold. I thought for sure that that was going to be spelling his own demise, but because he manages to bring down the Vomit before any additional damage is dealt to him, he narrowly avoids that Execute Threshold from Cartman. And then Morton, once again, we've talked about these junglers all set long, being in the right place at the right time. That Naja was there right as he needed to in order to save his solo laner's life and get that kill onto Cartman. Ult doesn't connect, but, I mean, truthfully, Judas, it was only a gap-closing tool to begin with. The damage was never going to be that relevant. And seemingly out of nowhere, Cartman tries to inflict some pressure onto the solo lane, but Taktico, if he doesn't die early on to a blue buff, this guy seems to be pretty good on this Cucullin.
Well, you know, died early on to the blue buff and actually won that game, so maybe is a bit of a blessing in disguise. However, this game, of course, has been having the advantage, as Cucullin tends to do, mind you. You know, this isn't a particular shock that Cucullin's having a decent showing in the lane, but it's unfortunate for Kabani. They have fallen down early on, because like you said on this farm, and you do want to be you know, sustaining up the gold and just playing quite passively in lane, but aggressively in lane is this mid lane, and lifted to the sky is Cartman with that landfall now. Nowhere to go because the pathway out is blocked, and that's a kill from Ptolemy, who's made the long rotation over to this middle lane. Now it's a 4-man grouping in the mid lane because they want to turn their attention to this Gold Fury. King Kai's getting the foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah, they've got 4 members here grouped up around this Gold Fury. They know Vanatix is here and a ward will spot him out, and they send Morton down for zone duty, but somebody's got to find Ruby, Judas. They pinged him out, but everybody getting very low on this objective.
Yeah, backline is tanking up the objective. Morton on zone patrol. Silo on ward patrol, just looking out for anyone who might steal it. But if you're too worried about the steal, maybe it's not a good idea to go for the pull. And that will be the decision for King Kai's as they opt to back on away and maybe take a better engagement because they've had such a good start. Now, they don't need to be taking these risky fights. Flag Slayer, a little bit of danger yet again, gets caught by the hook, caught by the sash. Just feels like the long-range CC from King Kai's is too much to deal with.
And that's the difference between this Gauntlet of Thebes start and this Prophetic Cloak start. You can see that with the fully stacked Gauntlet of Thebes, Sylor is so incredibly tanky. That's just about the best value for the gold that you can get as a support if you want to be tanky. Whereas across the way, Flake Slayer will be tanky at some point, Judas, but only 13 stacks on the Prophetic Cloak isn't going to cut it, and Morton's going to force beads and ult off of Vanatix here.
Beads and ult, but Cartman's on scene. Now comes the sun's raining down on top of Cartman, and they can't get away, but can Morton get away? Now Ptolemy is clearly on out of there. Morton getting chased down, is being slowed by those crocodiles, and the water will be enough. They trade junglers to both teams, but the Pendragon Playmakers, happy with the position they find themselves in, they look to pull the Gold Fury because Kabani is here to play zone duty.
Kabani is here. Sylor's still lurking though, but it doesn't look like Ptolemy's gonna step up. It's only the support.
Oh, there comes the landfall. Just a bit too early, though. Trying to recreate the heroics from game number 2 with a Fire Giant steal, but not connecting with it. All of a sudden, good couple of minutes for Pendragon Playmakers puts us in my favorite state of game, Kaizo, which is where one team has the experience lead, the other team has a gold lead. Despite it only being a small amount, this is pretty much an even game now.
Yeah, and it's entirely off of the Kinkai is just playing a little bit too aggressive. Ptolemy has been playing very, very forward in both of these last 2 games, trying to force the issue and solo out Vanatix as often as possible, but just goes a little bit too far forward that time without much help. He had Morton there, and that was good enough to get 1 kill, but being able to turn around the rest of that fight, I mean, it's a fight at the enemy back camps. You know that the enemy team's going to be there sooner, and you know this time Morton's here on the scene.
Oh, they're looking for the 1v1, but no one will respect the 1v1. As Morton gets a good angle, Tommy almost gets killed off. But Fanatics, with their last gasp, tries to take down their opposing number. Doesn't manage to do it. I think they might have been out there, you know. They managed to get the distance, but I don't know, didn't commit to a direction. I guess they, already accepted their fate maybe before it was sealed.
Yeah, Sylor on the Maui was there as well. There was no real escape there, so just pop the wing shard, turn around, try to get the kill there. I don't hate the play. I mean, if you're dead to rights, you might as well try to get something, but unfortunately that time there was just nothing to be found, and that's really what the Kinkais need to be doing. If Ptolemy is going to be playing this aggressively in dual lane, going to constantly be trying to fight Vanatix to the death, you need somebody there in support of that. And that time Morton was in a very good position to be able to help out, but they need to continue that kind of aggression if they want to continue to develop this lead. Very aggressive fight around this Pyromancer, forces Bananathan out. This is the early stages of the team fight stage where it looks like the Kinkais want to force their lead, but there's just not much up on the map right now for them to do, Judas. It's another several minutes before either one of these major neutral objective is due to spawn. They're going to have to find something to do with their time other than just blindly attacking the enemy team.
I don't know, man. Blindly attacking the enemy team is what we love to watch, even when it doesn't really seem too relevant. It's always what brings the maximum entertainment. One thing I'm noticing, though, Kaizo, is that Kinkais definitely have a much easier time of actually beginning these fights as a triple bounce comes on. But Alex, you're just losing this fight. You really should not be taking it. However, Ptolemy will take it every opportunity they can. Gets the final shot. Does enough damage. That's how you take a solo kill down. And this is how you take a group kill down. As Morton gets surrounded by the entire enemy team. Both teams trade kills across the map.
Yeah, it looks like Morton used the ult at some point there, and no beads on cooldown other than the ones that Ptolemy forced out onto Vanatix. So maybe just one ult off the mark, perhaps, for Morton, or got caught out there. But he certainly was not going to be turning that one around on account of the fact that there were 3 to 4 members there, all willing to put him in a coffin. And once again, Judas, I'm going to bring it back to the fact that we're just kind of fighting for the sake of fighting here.
Yep.
There's no neutral objective to be done at any point in time, until just now as Pyromancer spawns. It's going to have to be the Kinkais reeling it back in, kind of like addressing the situation much more earnestly as opposed to just feeling the momentum of the set. They're very happy with the position that they're in this game. They're thrilled that they aren't going down 2-0 after the way that game number 1 went. I think that you just need to take a deep breath and reorganize yourselves, because this is the state of the game where all of the decisions are going to start to matter.
Yep, all the decisions, where you take your fights, when you take your fights, who you engage onto, will all be the most relevant of situations now, as Vanatix still just trying to get the buff, man, just trying to get some farm, but the ward coverage is great. It means they get spotted out all the way up into the ultimate from Morton. Now the fight continues on, but Vanatix will not participate in it as Cartman gets walled in by the landfall. Excellent use of that ultimate now. Ptolemy with the double kill dives forward looking for the triple. They can't find the damage onto Flake Slayer, but what they can do is find the position to take this Gold Fury.
Yeah, man, I don't know what went on in game number 1, but game 2 and 3, Ptolemy is looking like a completely different player as Morton is surrounded and pounded by all of the Kinkais. He stepped up there trying to get the steal, but everybody was very well aware of the fact that he was on the scenery. Ptolemy has looked crazy good in these last 2 games, to the point that he is just significantly gapping Vanatix, who we said was the unsung hero of that first game. Whatever change he made, whatever adaptation took place between game 1 and 2 is absolutely a critical driving force for this Kinkai's roster. They can leave him on an island over there and just know that there is no shot that Vanatix is going to be getting the better of him. That's to the tune of about a 2-level lead here for the ADC. And we've also been talking about the junglers in this set. Whichever one between Cartman and Morton gets off to the better start seems to be the team that ends up taking the victory at the end of the day. And right now, Morton 2 levels ahead of this Ao Kuang as well, starting to get this damage back online. It is a scary position if you are a Pendragon Playmakers fan.
Well, the scary enough position in this left-hand lane. Not only is the ghost wall there that Vanatix is about to walk on through, we do also have just Ptolemy doing whatever they want on this side of the map, which opens up the right-hand side for this Pyromancer possibly. Now, Flake Slayer gets hooked in, but they go for the bigger fish instead of Cartman. Lifted to the sky, stunned as they land, have no chance to react, And a jungler for Pendragon Playmakers goes down. Kabani now in the middle of 4 and absolutely decides to GTFO, I should say, as they just do not want to participate in that battle any longer. But now this Pyromancer pulled again by King Kai's means that Kabani wants to go in and is churning the damage out onto Bananathan as Tommy gets another solo kill on the left-hand side, but this right-hand side's where the all-important brawl is going down. Flake Slayer slowed, pulled in by the landfall now. Finished off are both players from the Pendragon Playmakers. King Kai's split the call, split the kills, get one on a few different players, and that's 3 men down now for the Playmakers. Means that this Pyromancer, possibly even Fire Giant, will be all the way open for the Chaos side.
Yeah, unanswered there as well, and they're going to look for one more onto this Vomit, but Kabani is unlikely to allow that one to go down. They get an incredible pick onto Cartman to start that one off with a raw ultimate from Morton. He doesn't even need to blink, just hears the Dragon Call from Cartman going off and takes the Outquang up into the sky. An aggressive play from Bananathan pays off there as he dashes in to ensure that the stun is perfectly timed on the landing and get that kill. And then the rest of the Playmakers just kind of felt like they were ambling around without a whole lot of direction there. They were certainly in the sights of the Kinkais and relevantly positioned around that objective. But after Carton went down, it didn't seem to me as though the Playmakers actually wanted to take that fight. They took it anyway, and they were at least willing to try their hand there. But the Kinkais have just had the advantage this entire game so far. There's been a little bit of fireworks in dual lane with some early rotations, but I mean, past that, Judas, this game has been very one-sided, and it's a lot of this man on your screen right now.
Ptolemy now takes the fight 1v2, gets the first kill, now is looking at the second kill, the third one is on the way, Execute gets Aegis out, can Cartman find the shots? No, they cannot, triple kill gets stolen, but Ptolemy goes nuts, goes off, gets all the kills down, and the Playmakers are finding nothing on this left-hand side.
And you know the craziest thing about that fight, Judas, is that's not even the first time he's done that this set.
In that
Last
position.
game, he took a fight at the purple buff, killed Vanitix on the ADC, and then Cartman shows up on Ao Kwang, tries to get the kill, and cannot bring him down even in the 1v2. This guy Ptolemy is on something completely different right now. They do not have an answer for this man, and now he's 3 levels up, newly level 20, has the Hunter's Cowl and the Deathbringer online, looking for this Fire Giant. I mean, saying that the Kinkais aren't in a good position to win this game is certainly not the case, because they are absolutely on a stranglehold in this game.
While I have a window, I would just like to throw out there that a couple of nights ago I was playing some in-houses with our EU folk, and I actually came up against Ptolemy, and my team did beat them. I'm not going to say any more details on that, on the context. I'm just going to say, guy's not as good as it looks like. Anyway, Fire Giant goes down in favor of King Kai's, with Pendragon Playmakers not even taking a glance over to the right-hand side of the map as their attention goes to this Gold Fury. They will take it and will, of course, get that defensive buff on their structures. But despite that, it's still going to be a really rough defense for this Order side.
Yeah, and they're going to have to forfeit this tower as well because nobody is around, and I think that's probably going to be the case for a lot of these defenses because Merlin, very, very strong on siege defense, clears waves incredibly effectively, but the exorbitant lead that the Kinkais have here, 4-21, 6k gold in the lead, and so much experience as well, 2 to 3 levels in a lot of relevant places, specifically the ADC and the jungle, is going to make it very difficult for the Playmakers to be able to step up to any of these towers. They do have the comeback mechanic over here of these chests that spawn, 1 for each 1,000 gold you're behind, which will give you at least a little bit of edge back into this game, but when the Kinkais are grouped up with the Fire Giant taking down these towers, I'm not sure how much difference that is going to make. The Playmakers need to be spreading out the map right now and just finding farm where they can get it. They're instead going to position around this tower and at least try to get a defense off, it looks like, but I don't know, Judas. I think that it might be better off to just cut their losses and not take any more significant falls in this one.
Well, based on how this set has gone so far, Well, going into the dying stages of the game, because these games have not been going much longer. So if the fight goes badly for the Playmakers, that could just spell the curtains on this set. Now, this left side tier 2 is being sieged up by King Kai's, and will go down relatively cheaply, except for a trade of a tier 1 in the right hand side of the map, and that's it. They're just going to back this one up, not look to overstep their mark. And I suppose, despite the lead, this is a best of 3, and of course a game 3 and a best of 3. You just want to play it as safe as possible.
Yeah, you just got to back up and play the game very cleanly here. There's no reason to try to force something when you're this far ahead. And, you know, honestly, Judas, I say this far ahead. I'm just now realizing 5,000 gold is not nearly as far ahead as I thought that they were. This feels
That's
like
true,
a much more commanding lead, but it must just be the momentum of the set that is causing them to feel this far forward as they take down this Pyromancer as well. Playmakers do still have an avenue back into this game. This is going to likely be the longest game we've seen so far in this set. And in these late game fights, they will have some pretty good tools available to them, namely being able to execute Hugador on this Cucullin if those beads are forced by something else. That's going to be a huge boon for them, considering they don't have to go through the full health bar in order to pull that one off. They can kind of cut it short and not have to do nearly as much dirty work as they otherwise would have needed to. But they've got to find wherever their advantage is going to be and take it, because if they let the Kinkais reset, get this next siege off, get on even footing, I think that it's going to be very difficult for them to find a position in which they're actually comfortable enough to take one of these fights.
I'm just curious, actually, with this gold lead, and yeah, actually, you can see there's a big steep decline, right, in favor of the Kinkais, and then it sort of crests on back towards the Playmakers, and I've got to say that's probably just this new gold camp over here. They are several thousand gold behind, so, you know, have been able to pick that up a couple of times, and I guess that's just what's closing the gap. Now, is that an arbitrary gap, and maybe it is as far ahead for the Kinkais as we feel like, or maybe, I don't know, I know that gold is meant to soften the blow, but a couple of thousand gold, will that make the difference? Because like you said, the momentum has just been so in favor of King Kai's that I don't know. I feel like a couple of thousand gold is not going to slow this team down.
Yeah, and it has been a lot of the intangibles here. Hang on, Cavani's got to get out of here. He'll go ahead and get marked by the Golden Crow, but it doesn't look like, at least so far, they're going to be able to catch up to him. The stun will be off the mark from Ptolemy, and he's still going to have to run. I was going to cut off there, but Judas, they're still looking for this guy.
Man. Still chasing them down. They will catch him in the Windfire wheels, and look at the damage coming through. Despite the health on this Varmana, it does not matter. Gets taken out, trades their life for the Primal Fury, but now it's all about this Fire Giant fight and whether or not Pendragon Playmakers can actually contend it. King Kai's are waiting for them. Pendragon Playmakers not interested.
Yeah, they are not interested in what is being sold here by the Playmakers, but it is very important to note they do at least get something for the blue side. They get the Primal Fury, and honestly, Kabani dying there, but, like, not really to much effect. It's really not that impactful, honestly. Like, he's still going to respawn. He's still going to be up for the defense. It doesn't really matter that he falls there. The only big thing that happened as a result of his death is the fact that he thought that if he used beads, he could live there, and that would be impactful somehow. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that because, again, he died and it's totally fine. But now that those beads are down, that give them a very good target for this next fight. The Kinkais need to be stepping up here as quickly as possible to make sure that they take this fight while they have some advantage still left on the map. If they siege this straight up, they've given the Pendragon Playmakers enough time and enough gold to make up to the point that they've got most of their starter items online. They're starting to upgrade some relics as well. This is a point where the Playmakers can start to dig in their heels and potentially fight back into this one. I'd like to see them go in the next 80 seconds or so while that cooldown of the beads is still down and not available for this Vamana. That way they can at least have something to aim at.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, something we haven't touched on quite yet, is the Fire Giant buff lasts a minute less now. So you don't really have the time to mess about and dilly-dally with this buff you have. Now, they are splitting the call. They are pushing left side and mid lane, King Kai's, and really takes a ton of damage. Speaking of a ton, that's a bit more than a ton, as they are now off the map. So bursting on in to this left-hand side. It is only Flake Slayer to defend this left-hand side, because in the mid-side of the map, Cartman is falling low, just about surviving. Juggernaut gets caught, but doesn't fall down until right this moment. Now the left side bird is gone. Mid lane bird still up, and Kabani swinging away on the entire enemy team. Ptolemy, low health, gets caught, gets killed off. Kabani with the double, looking to swing even further. I don't really see what's gonna stop this Varman. That is a dash in the wrong direction, though. Nice stun, but Fanatics gives chase, as does Flake Slayer. Bananathan low. It's a matter of who and when, not if. And Fanatics gets a killing spree off it. A full deicide. They lose one Phoenix, but that's the defense, the digging in the heels that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and in critical fashion as well. If they lose 2 of those Phoenixes, that could have been curtains for them. But despite the fact that they lose Ruby very early on in that fight, just some unexpected damage. I don't think that once he got bomb stunned over the wall, he was anticipating that he was going to get grabbed by Maui, and that allowed that last bomb to connect. You can see he's got both relics available. That's likely why that just caught him off guard. But the fact that they successfully defend the middle bird is the key component in that fight. Yes. Because they very well could have lost that one as well. Instead, it was just, once again, a little bit of over-aggression from the Kinkais. And we've seen this from Ptolemy on the left-hand side as, oh my god. How many people need to die to NPCs in this set, Judith?
I don't know, but it'll never be enough, because it's always funny, as long as it doesn't happen to, my own team. But I mean, I just took all the wind out of my sails. I was like in my own head talking about the game state, and now I don't even remember what I was saying because we watched a second player in this set die to an NPC. Right, look, is it possible to solo Pyro with Merlin? Like, probably not, honestly. Maybe? Maybe, but you've got to be in a really good position, and, Ruby's really not.
The question is why, though? Like, whether or not he can do it should be irrelevant. Why is he alone in that call? Like, if they're going for Pyro, that's fine. Go for Pyro. But send somebody to help the boy out. He should never, 30 minutes into the game, be soloing an objective as a mid laner. That's just not a good look for them. And now the Kinkais have the advantage once more.
Yeah, they've got all the territory that they want. We do have Ruby back in base, pushing up the left-hand side. Well, hold on, Kabani takes a ton of damage, gets caught with the Sunder coming through that will just about survive by nature of that wild hunt coming through. Now Cartman runs in and does not get anywhere. Hits right into a brick wall. Now Fanatics gets caught. That's the purification beat out from this carry. Morton, though, still there, still on the scene, and Juggernaut will take down that kill. Now the alarm bells need to be ringing for the Playmakers. They've already lost one Phoenix, and there are only minions coming on down. Now Flake Slayer trying to survive, but it's just for a moment longer. And Sobek's very tanky. Kabani on the backside looking to just bait the enemy team away, but the eyes do not follow. They are looking down this mid lane now. Ruby, fresh off respawn, of course, is trying to come back through. Kabani in on the backside, does pick up Silo, I should say, but do they have the defense, as there's still 4 members barreling into this Titan room?
Oni fire waves pouring in from left top. Tico is zoning deep. They're going to have to commit to this one or get on out of here.
But Anything low and will retreat away for the moment, but not for long enough. Kabani does fall, though, and Ruby's taking so many critical shots from Ptolemy. They re-engage to the Kinkais. Cartman on a final last breath defense, but it will not be enough. Kinkais storm into the Titan room, burn it down, and take this victory 2-1.
And back against the wall, they managed to get all the work done that they needed to. Down 1 game in this set in very decisive fashion. They bounced back and managed to successfully take Game 2 and Game 3 off of, once again, Ptolemy just on another level. Top of the player damage charts by about 8,000 damage when that game ends. 13, 2, and 6 on this Hu Yi. If you thought that this guy was good in Game 2, wait until you hear about what he does in Game 3, because Vanatix is a very strong player in his own right. Put that on display in Game 1, but the distance between them in the back half of that set, Judas, was incomparable. And Morton played the facilitator role to a T, absolutely willing to sacrifice himself at times to set up difficult kills onto the frontliners, even getting some critical picks onto Cartman, all of the team was firing on all cylinders during that one. And to what beautiful effect that we finally get a game that lasts more than 30 minutes and still manages to end in incredibly decisive fashion.
Yeah, incredibly decisive, incredibly abrupt, because they just sort of found a window, picks a few members off, and I mean, it's tough to say how much of an impact it actually had, but Ruby falling to the Pyromancer did open up a lot of space, and, you know, all of a sudden, you see Flake Slayer goes in early, reaching for some territory, Kabani out of the fight before it really started, and we saw what Kabani was able to do, right, when they've got some space, but the whole of their team was already down, and it was just a bit too late, but, I mean, that's it. That's sometimes all you need for King Kai's. Yeah. They get an opportunity gifted to them by Ruby, and you still gotta take it. You know, you don't get given wins in Smite. You do still have to take them away. But that will be the 2-1 victory for King Kai's, and that will be it for today. We do have one final, extremely important order of business, Kaizo, and that will be our Caster's Choice MVPs for today. Now, of course, I only came in for game number 3, but I was still tuned in, so I'm going to be watching and, you know, deciding on who my MVP is. And I'm going to make it difficult for you, Kaizo, because I'm going to make myself go first. I'm going to take Ptolemy away. Of course, we saw in game 2 and 3, fantastic performance from the carry role, which has been, the best word I can use to describe it is questionable. No one really is sure how strong carries will be, especially with a reduced amount of lifesteal, but I mean, if Ptolemy's playing it, apparently carries are still strong. So, right now, it doesn't seem to be a problem. But that was the obvious one, Kaiser. Who are you going for your choice?
It's Morton, and it's not close, man. Like, Morton was the facilitator in game 3, but he was the reason that they were in a position to win in game number 2. And the scoreboard for neither one of those 2 games, by the way, will reflect the appropriate amount of impact that he had on the set, that he had on putting his team in a position to win those 2 games. Damage numbers were fairly low, not an incredibly high stat line like Ptolemy had in games 2 and 3, but still in the right place, always at the right time, cleaning up the kills in the Thanatos game, setting up and facilitating here on the Naja. Definitely Morton is your number 2 MVP.
Well, there you go. You've heard it here first. Ptolemy and Morton. Funnily enough, Kaiser, that's one of the few times we've actually had both MVPs come from the winning team. There always seems to be a star on show for the other side, but that will be who it is for today. So,
I'm sorry. Can I change mine?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, sorry, Morton, get out. Not interested. Yes. Apparently, it wasn't even close.
Much higher impact. Elder Satyr, definitely.
Yeah, sorry, Morton. Elder Satyr's in. Shoutouts to Pyromancer, close honorable mentions, has to be said there. But yeah, of course, it's always great when an NPC gets a kill, and we've had 2 of them. You know what we actually had this set, guys? We had Elder Satyr gets a kill, Pyromancer gets a kill, and possibly even more rare, we actually had Ganesh get a kill directly.
Ooh,
so that's a trifecta of spicy kills right there. So, I mean, this is just the kind of entertainment you can expect at Smite Night After Dark. Of course, this is a regular slot we've had for now. I don't know how long that will continue, because unfortunately for everyone, actually, I'm going to hold myself there. We will not be able to carry on in this time slot, possibly, but I will update you guys on that in the future at some point. But this is always great fun. It's always fun having Frog and Kaizo come in to get this sort of later sets, because we always get some very special bits of excitement. But I've been Judas, joined by Kaizo. Previously we had Frog. This has been the Smite Night League, and today we will be signing off. And make sure you hit that follow button and tune in next time.